Hey, honey. Okay, let's talk about something here. You, I hate using the word have, but for simplicity, you have to learn to like yourself. Some would go so far, be like, "I love myself," or you have to be like in love with yourself first. That seems a bit extreme, but you have to be a fan, at least to some level, of yourself, and that level will change over time. It can wax and wane as you get older and with different life experiences, and also with our deterministic nature with what happens to you, which is out of your control as well. So I'm not going to mention the exact story that led me to make this video real quick for you, but somebody committed suicide a couple days ago. And as soon as I heard the reason or what they had done, I said to myself, it's because they're chasing validation through certain not superficial accomplishments, but like accomplishments that for some reason people are jealous of, and it's hard to outdo yourself. Oftentimes, for example, Neil Armstrong went to the moon. How's he going to really outdo himself? Does he run for president? Does he save a country from starvation? The guy, who knows what these where the goalposts are after this. So the issue with this is this person accomplished something. I could tell after that because it's a superficial accomplishment. They went on the news for something else. They're around age 30, which for is like a pivotal age for anyone, male or female. But a lot of my female friends, when they turned 30, it was like a big deal for them and all that stuff because people, for some reason, like equate these odd years, 20, 30, 40 as being a big deal when, you and I know science at this point. It should be like 23 versus 37 versus 62. Like, let's use those numbers as well. Like, rarely do things actually happen at the zeros, at the aughts. So what am I trying to say here exactly? It's you. I have another friend who's traveling right now. They're in a foreign country. They wanted me to come down with them. I wish I could have, but with COVID and stuff, and there's a couple of medical procedures going on here that I should be here for. I couldn't quite do it. And they're talking to me about how they felt lonely. And I mentioned to them, I'm like, some people travel to escape something, which is fine. If you want to escape, I totally understand that. And other people, and it doesn't just have to be traveling, okay, but other people add things to their lives because they're now adding this to the core of something good. What I mean by that is this. No matter what, maybe we'll have the technology for this when you're around, but no matter what, cannot escape your own mind. There's a 3-pound gray brain in between your ears. It's still the most complicated thing that we've ever seen in the entire cosmos, according to to particle physicist Michio Kaku, and I agree with that. And there's a word called solipsism. Maybe we can make that the word of the day today, solipsism. It's essentially that your mind is creating your world, your environment, your cosmos. It could be that right now it's snowing outside, so you can show you the snow and all that stuff, but I don't know what's going on upstairs. So that could actually not be there. And as soon as I start walking up the stairs, I see the dogs and I see the food and I see the, like the house, and those walls could be created by my brain. It's not true. It is there. That's like, does a tree, if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound sort of thing? It does. You don't need consciousness to examine. And we'll go into this in another thing. They talk about how in quantum mechanics, the double slit experiment, how an electron acts as a particle and not a wave when it's being observed. And there's kind of hesitancy over using the word observed versus measured, because observation means that there's an eye, and eye means there's consciousness seeing that. So that's a scary word to use in science. But the tree does make a sound. Just because you're not there doesn't mean it doesn't make a sound. What I mean by all this is that solipsism, you create your world, okay? So if you don't like yourself, or like at the core, you're just not content with yourself, it doesn't matter if you go to solitary confinement or to the most pristine beaches in Bali. You're bringing your 3-pound brain with you to the airport, on the flight, to the beaches, to the hotel room, back to the bathroom. Like when you meet people, restaurant, bars, nightclubs, churches, whatever you go to go escape, you can't escape your mind. So the work that should be done, at least to some level, is to learn to appreciate yourself if you can't appreciate yourself. And I don't do any of these, overarching wishes of like, you should love yourself, all this stuff. It's hard for some people. And there's a very specific reason why. A lot of people have had horrible things happen to them that are out of their control. I know a lot of young women who have been like abused sexually at a young age, and that's not their fault. Somebody did this horrible thing to them, and now they kind of can't escape the torture of that, as hard as they try. And so that's something that you work on over time. That's okay. You're never, or I think if you do reach that level of like I love me, that's a little bit weird, but it's just about incrementally learning about yourself, and that those levels may change. Maybe some years you'll like equate that to like you get a great job promotion and you're like, you know what, this is my year, whatever. It's just a job promotion. I'm glad you feel good about it. Maybe the next year, like you lose a loved one and you'll think that I'm not that great this year, whatever. So, levels can go up and down, but to some degree, just count what your worth is, like why I love you, why hopefully there are other people around you that love you as well, why we appreciate and you're very happy every day that you're here, that you exist, whether we see you or not. You could be at school or off of your work or you're traveling, whatever. But I'm just happy to know that you're here. Right now, I'm here in the world and you're not here. And I know there's, I'm assuming a couple of people that I make happy, but I don't even care about that. I like me. Some days I hate me. Like a lot of days I hate me, but overall, I'm kind of a fan of myself. And even if I sit by myself and everyone in the world is dead and I'm on an island and just sitting there like this, I'm like, all right, I like the way I think, and I like the questions I asked, and I've done things that I regret in the past, but even that's a part of it where I'm like, oh, I like learn from those things. I'm not like a socio or anything. I've learned from my mistakes, and you move on and you behave better, and you treat people better, and you learn to love more and like receive love more and all that stuff, and just how you think. I don't want to define what any of it is for you, but the problem with this person who might have committed suicide, we're going to talk about suicide a lot in another video, because people treat it now with kid gloves, or like it's this thing that you can't talk about or whatever, or they send you to like a number that you call these Samaritans or whatever, which is all fine, but we can talk about it scientifically. One of the lowest points in my life that I ever had to do, I had to do a suicide PSA for a TV show. And we're going to talk about the surreal nature of that, because I was actually at the peak of not doing well while doing that suicide PSA. So much so that 2 weeks later, they made me refilm it because I looked suicidal doing it. I'll talk about that in another episode. It's a really funny Hollywood story to my friends who like appreciate that stuff. But, this person got some validation. They couldn't quite keep going because they thought that they had to live up to that validation. And they felt that their worth wasn't there. And they might have killed themselves for, I don't mean to, assume, but I'm going to just like assume that's the story. And if that is the story, that's tragic, because she's worth a lot. And if you compare that life to most people, she's doing, astronomically better. But she is comparing it to her own goalpost there, and that's saying that that's not enough. And you have to be able to have that all stripped away from you and still say, if you're like a beauty pageant winner, and you're have third-degree burns and you don't look anything like you do after that, and you don't have any arms, any legs, whatever, you're still there. And that is the core where you're to be like, I like me, and I'm going to build from that. When that core is somewhat developed and in a more positive sentiment than negative, you can build on that. So to add friends and good food and travel and alcohol or drugs or this or partying or church or kids or husband and wife, to add all that while not fixing the core, that is gonna rear its ugly head later. It's gonna fester like a disease, like gangrene at the core, and it will show through other relationships. Or you can just keep hiding it until the day you die, which is what a lot of people do. They don't like address these things, so they don't actually live their lives. It's not a life examined, as Socrates put it. They just kind of don't deal with that train of thought, and they just die eventually. But they added like enough things to like distract them, trivial things. And people like Ernest Becker and Dr. Sheldon Solomon mentioned to be careful with adding the trivial stuff. Work on the core of you. That's going to change over time. Okay, like if you're seeing this when you're 5 versus 12 versus in college 20, going for your PhD, or working a 35, 67-year-old woman, it'll change and you'll develop things. One reason why I'm like enjoying making these videos for you is because I actually don't know what age you're going to watch it at. You could be 80 years old and watching this, older than I am now, which is okay. And it's kind of, interesting. And I know a lot of like older women who are like recently telling me there are like monumental changes happening in how they think. They're, 60, 70, 80 years old, and that's a really beautiful thing. I think for some reason people think that like the growing ends in like your 20s or something. It doesn't. There are like amazing things that happen at all ages. So try to be a fan of you first, and that core will then follow you everywhere. And you won't like, it won't be like escaping things now. You'll just be adding things to the good core that is you. And I want to emphasize, I mean, I'm only working on it. I'm not even close to mastering this stuff, but uh, not even close. I can be very cynical, very nihilistic, very negative. I think I am that more than not. But at the end, I am a fan of me. Not saying that in like a braggadocious. I like me, and I'll keep adding to that very carefully. And I don't add things that take away from that. It builds a confidence. In Hollywood, I knew a girl who was like a background extra for just, ages, okay? And she kind of got like tricked because when she just moved to Hollywood, the first like week or two, somebody gave her a commercial, and she's been chasing that high ever since. And I'm like, oh, honey, that's not, like you got to be careful there. She's chasing like a goalpost that somebody else set up for her, and she's just not happy. And that's not. I want to make sure that the core of you is good and improving over time. All right, there's a lot of changes happening here these days. I'll make some more videos on that stuff. And I'm in the market for a sailboat. So I'm seeing a sailboat on Saturday and seeing another one when the weather gets better. Got a call this morning from a guy in Maine talking about he had been to Afghanistan a few times. So we're kind of talking about that. He's a photographer and human rights advocate there. And he was even thinking about going back now, trying to figure out how safe it is and all that. It's their extreme winter there now. So, all right. Anyway, I have a tendency to make long videos, so I miss you. I'm excited for you to be here at some point. It doesn't matter when. I think it's cool to try to communicate with you until you're here. And if you ever watch any of these, that's great. If you don't, who cares? Not a big deal. Yeah. A lot of exciting things happen. I'm excited. I wish I could have helped that girl. Things that are in nature towards our narcissism and towards our looks and superficial things that can be very dangerous. And trust me, I know about that field and I've seen it too much from other people, and it can be very dangerous, especially for women, more than men, and for men too. It's just a dangerous, slippery, scary slope. You want to make sure that the core of you is good and you're a fan of you, and build off that. Add everyone off of that. Me too. Like, you don't have to add me or your mom or your siblings or your kids or anybody, your dogs, pets, anybody. Just you focus on you first. Make sure you kind of like that core, and you have the tools to be like, I can keep working on this to like every day, not every day, but to over time, like myself more and more. And you slowly add people to it, and add things, and add events, and add the trivial, and add everything else, and you'll see that that's going to be a really nice universe, a really nice tree. That is the Big Bang. That is you. Okay. And yeah. All right. I love you, and I love you. Okay. Bye.